All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Green Local District, Green Local School District Board of Education organizational meeting. Mrs. Snorberg, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Campbell.
Here.
Mrs. Stoynoff.
Here.
Mrs. Finelli. Here. Mr. Cohen.
Here.
Mr. Chinaki.
Here.
All right, first off will be the election of officers for the evening. What we'll do is, as standard, is that we'll nominate someone and then we will make the roll call. Or once we close the nominations, then we'll make the roll call and then you will respond with the name that you want for the particular office. I think we've all been through that before. Any questions about the format on that? So we will open it up for nominations for president for 2023.
I nominate Robert Campbell for president.
Second.
Hearing none others, then we will close the nominations. And Mrs. Snowberger, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Cohen.
Yes.
You have to call the name.
Oh, sorry, Bob Campbell.
Mr. Chinaki.
Last name.
Bob,
is fine.
Mr. Campbell.
Mrs. Finelli. Mr. Campbell. Mrs. Stoynoff.
Mr. Campbell?
Mr. Campbell.
Mr. Campbell. All right. And then for vice president, we'll follow the same format, and the floor is open for nominations at this time.
I nominate Katie Stoynoff for vice president.
Second that. Any others? Close the nominations. Mrs. Snowberger, would you call the roll?
Mr. Cohen.
Ms. Stoynoff.
Mr. Campbell.
Mrs. Stoynoff?
Mr. Chinaki.
Mrs. Stoynoff.
Mrs. Finelli.
Mrs. Stoynoff?
Mrs. Stoynoff.
Mrs. Stoynoff. Seems so weird to vote for yourself.
All right. We continue on with the appointments. I believe we're going to keep those the same that we had last year. Is that correct? Unless anyone wanted to change that?
Well, we just need to add the third too.
Right. So will the, let's see, Ohio School Board Association Legislative Liaison was
Mr.
Mr.
Chinaki.
Chinaki, all right. Student Achievement Liaison, I believe, was Mrs. Stoynoff?
No.
Or I meant Mrs.
Finelli.
Mrs.
Finelli.
Finelli.
That's what I meant to say. Tax Incentive Review Council, shut out of that again. Mrs. Snowberger. Yeah, that's getting old, right, after
Never
what,
gets old.
17
I
years?
still don't think it gets old.
Green Schools Foundation Representative,
That'd be me.
that's Mr. Chinaki, and alternate
That's me.
was Mrs. Stoynoff. And then for the Porters Lakes Career Center, we have 3 this year because we will be holding the presidency of PLCC, so they always, that district always gets 1 additional spot. I believe that will be myself, Mr. Cohen, and third, I believe, is Mr. Chinaki is going to
Yes.
join us?
Yep.
Okay.
3 Cs.
CQ. All right, item 5, the establishment of the regular meetings. Do I have a motion to establish the dates of the regular Green Local School District Board of Education meetings that will start at 6:30 p.m., held at the Central Administration Building and Council Chambers, as depicted there? Do I have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Chinaki.
Second?
Thank you, Mrs. Stoynoff. And as a note, you'll see that typically we don't have the end of January meeting, but we will this year since we will have some business to take care of that we did not do in December when we canceled that meeting. And along the way, if the meeting dates happen to change, either just due to kind of some notice things or something that we need to adjust the schedule, we'll certainly make that announcement as soon as possible. Once we figure that out, but I think these dates are going to hold pretty firm. Any questions or comments? Mrs. Snowberger?
Mr. Chinaki.
Yes.
Mrs. Stoynoff.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Cohen.
Yes.
Mrs. Finelli.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Item 6, delegation of authority to obligate the school district for specific activities and to appoint certain support personnel. Recommend the following, a bunch of the superintendent things. Nothing has changed or added, correct? Or do we take anything out from the?
Not in
previous
this
years?
section, it's the same.
And again, instead of reading all of it, this will also be available in the minutes on our website as well, if people want to look through that. Do I have a motion to accept the recommendations as printed?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen.
Second?
And a second, Mrs. Stoynoff, thank you. Questions or other comments? Mrs. Snubberger?
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoynoff?
Yes.
Mrs. Finelli?
Yes.
Mr. Chinaki?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes,
Motion carries 5-0.
thank you. And then item 7, general authorizations. The Akron Beacon Journal, Canton Repository, Southside News Leader designated as district's official newspapers, and the existing bylaws and policies for the board's own operation as well as the operation of the school system. Do I have a motion to approve the general authorizations?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Finelli.
Second.
And a second, Mr. Chinaki, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Mrs. Snowberger?
Mrs. Finelli? Yes. Mr. Chinaki?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes,
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoynoff?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
thank you. This concludes the organizational meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Thank you, Mrs. Stoynoff.
Second.
And second, Mrs. Finelli. Mrs. Snowberger?
Mrs. Stoynoff?
Yes.
Mrs. Finelli? Yes. Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Chinaki?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes,
Motion carries 5-0.
thank you. We are adjourned, and we'll reconvene at 6:30 for the regular meeting held right here.
Hey,